that the Shabbat will come, the kingdom on earth. Abba, Lord, this is a day, Abba, that you have made. This is the day where all nations will come up to Jerusalem to worship the King. Lord, all denominations of nations, Abba, will come to worship you. Thank you, Abba, for your presence. You are the reason, Lord, for first Shabbat. Hallelujah.
Amen.
Okay, before I share about this Torah portion, just a reminder for those of you who care about the appointed fast. Actually, it's not really an appointed fast, but it's a fast day. In Zechariah 8, it's the Lord says, Jehovah says to Zerubbabel, the fast days of the 4th month, the 5th month, the 7th month, and the 10th month will become appointed times in the future of celebration and rejoicing. So one of the fast days on Tuesday, it's a day fast, and usually you can have liquids, but if you want to go further and not have anything, it's up to you. Okay, but it's a fast day of today. Okay, and it commemorates. All these fast days commemorates dark times in Jewish history, but also there's things to learn through those dark times. Okay, ultimately it led to the destruction of the temple. Okay, and what happened on the 10th of Advent, there are other things going on. The onset of the siege of Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, and the beginning of the battle that ultimately destroyed Jerusalem and the temple of Solomon, and sent the Jews into a 70-year Babylonian exile. That happened on the 10th of Tibet. Now, other things happened, and I'll send you the teaching if you want in the email. Okay. Actually, I plan to send it on Monday. Okay, but do you know that I think it was on the 8th of Tibet, leading up to the 10th, that the Greeks asked the Jewish rabbis, and basically got 71 Jewish rabbis together, or scholars and scribes, and said, I want you to interpret the Old Testament in Greek. Actually, I'm sorry, not the Old Testament, the Torah, I think. It's the whole Old Testament, a whole Old Testament. It had never been done before. It was only ever in Hebrew. And actually, the rabbis were meticulous. The people who did this were meticulous at giving the exact correct Greek word for the Hebrew. Okay? So if you want to have the most accurate version, of course we've translated the Septuagint. It's called the Septuagint, from Greek back to English. You're going to have the more accurate translation of the English from the Greek in the Septuagint. But it was a day of grieving because it had never been translated, and the Jews say that if you lose the Hebrew, you lose something out of the word. So it's considered a time of mourning from the 8th to the 10th of Tibet, because they took and diluted, in their opinion, they diluted the Word of God into Greek. Okay, so I just want you to know that that's also what we're remembering too. Okay, to me, I think it's a good thing that the Greeks could understand the Torah and the Old Testament, but in reality, it grieved the Jewish people. Okay, and there are other things that took place And that was the second thing. There's a whole thing about the siege. There's the death of Ezra the scribe that happened during this time. Ezra was the one who created the synagogue system and the rabbis and everything. It originally was you would go to learn from the Levites. Later, when Israel returned from Babylon, he set up the return to the Torah. There was a revival of Judaism, but the Judaism of God, the Torah. Okay, so anyhow, that's a lot of things happen on the 10th of today. So we have a time of fasting. Again, I'll leave it up to you. A day fast during Tuesday. Okay. Okay. We're in the portion called Vayigash. We've been talking about Yosef for 2 weeks, and this is the last portion with Yosef. The first week we talked about how the life of Yosef matched closely with the first coming of Messiah and the way Yosef was treated. And then last week we talked about how the life of Joseph is represented by the second coming, or I should say is symbolic of the second coming of Messiah. We're going to continue that today. Okay, and what's interesting, and it was brought up last night in the class, was the Jews teach that there are two Messiahs. Messiah ben Yosef, Messiah son of Yosef, and Messiah son of David, Mashiach ben David. Okay, in the time of Yeshua, they were looking for Mashiach ben David. They didn't want someone to come along and like speak to their hearts. They wanted someone to come along and destroy the Romans. Okay, so they, even though they knew, they had this theory that Messiah was going to come first to suffer. And why did they get that idea? Isaiah 53 talks about the arm of the Lord becoming a man and suffering for the sins of the people. Okay, so we got the two comings of Messiah, really, Messiah ben Yosef. Now, his name was not Messiah ben Yosef as a prophecy that his father on earth would be called Joseph. Messiah ben Yosef means the suffering of Joseph. Messiah ben Yosef. The Messiah would come first to suffer like Yosef suffered, like Joseph suffered. And then he would come again like David to destroy the enemy. Okay, so there's two comings that the Jews talk about, but yet they say, no, Messiah is coming once. And I said, no. But see, here's what sets up a very dangerous thing. Yeshua said, I come in the name of the Father, and you don't receive my words. But one's coming in his own name, and him you'll listen to. There's a great danger, because we know, according to Revelation, that the false Messiah suffers a wound and then comes back to life. So the Jews have a theory that the same Messiah is going to come to suffer and then to be victorious. But they don't understand that it's Yeshua. Okay? So they're setting themselves up, many of them, to be deceived. Because the false Messiah is, and by the way, the devil knows this. The devil knows there's these two comings. So he's going to try to, like mask it in what he does when the false Messiah comes to power. He's going to come to power, and then he's probably going to get hurt severely where we think he's going to die, and he's going to come back to life. Now, some people want to just spiritualize it and say, well, the false Messiah is probably just the kingdom of, of the Muslims. Okay, basically Islam. Okay, someone's going to come and, Islam, the Ottoman Turkish Empire fell in the early 1900s, I think like 1917 or 18. I might be off on a year or two here. Okay, and some people say it's going to come back, and it very well may be, and that'll still be a part of the fulfillment. But I still think that something's going to happen in this man that everybody is going to love, this Antichrist, who's going to pretend to be the greatest guy on earth. I think something's going to happen to him, but he's going to come back to life. Because he's playing that role of trying to pretend to be Messiah ben Yosef to deceive. And it wouldn't even surprise me if the father of the false Messiah, his name is Joseph. It would not surprise me. Because he wants to play it out. He wants to deceive. He doesn't want the Jews to accept Yeshua as Messiah ben Yosef. And he is Messiah ben Yosef. And that's why we've been going over Yosef. I've been showing you by the Spirit, and I'm also getting new revelation as we've been going along, how much Joseph is a type and shadow of Messiah. And it's amazing. It's detailed. Okay, now we're going to talk about when he reveals himself to his brothers. Okay, so go into Genesis 44:18. Oh, I must have taken my glasses out of here. That's all right. I'll try my best. Oh, thank you. Okay, please do not comment. These are very feminine glasses, but I need them. Okay. Just, all of you who are watching, just want you to know. Okay. Thank you, Christina. Okay. Okay, the word, let's see where we at. Okay, 44:18. The magnification is very great on this, so I'm not sure how much I can do this because it makes me dizzy when I take them off. Okay. Verse 18. Then approached him did Judah, and he said, If you please, my lords, speak, please, may your servant a word in the ears of my Lord, and let not flare up your anger at your servant, for like you, like Pharaoh. Okay, now, last week, we got to the point where his brothers, he set up his brothers so that he can have his brother Benjamin. But it wasn't to have his brother Benjamin, it was to test their hearts. The hearts of his brothers, Israel, the hearts of the children of Israel, the hearts of Reuben and Simeon and all of his brothers. And so he sets up Benjamin by putting his goblet, his cup, he called his cup of divination, but he was only messing with them, okay? Inside of Benjamin's sack as they were leaving, he says, how could you reward evil for good? I took care of you, and yet you're taking my cup. Don't you know that I divine? Okay, so he brings the cup. They all go back into the palace. And they're all wondering, well, what are you doing? Now, their father was already grieving because he thought Joseph was gone. He was dead. Remember, they rolled his robe of many colors that they call it, was actually just pieces of wool, okay? And they wrap it in goat's blood, okay? And they tell their father, and this is almost 40 years earlier. And I say almost 40 years because he went into slavery at the age of 17, sold to the Egyptians eventually. So that was, then he was there for 13 years before he was raised up to be second in command of Egypt at the age of 30. Now it's been 7 years of the land's been blessed, and then 2 years of famine. So you got exactly 39, somewhere between 39 and 40 years has gone by since he's been with his family, Yosef. And he's second in command of the whole world at that time, Egypt. Okay? Now, the first time when his brothers meant to kill him, it was Judah who calmed him down and says, put him in the pit, we'll sell him. So it was Judah that stood in the gap. Okay, then, afterwards, we hear that Joseph goes to Egypt, and then they immediately go into the story of Judah. They didn't go into the story of Simeon. They didn't go into the story of Reuben. They went into the story of Judah. Why? Because there's a close connection between Judah and Joseph. There's a prophecy that in the future, God will take the stick of Judah and the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, the son of Joseph. And he will bring them together. And I can't remember where that prophecy is at this moment. I should have added it, okay? But those two together will become one in his hands. And there will no longer be a division in Israel. Okay, but basically, this division, it's connected with Judah and with Joseph. It's a prophecy. Because out of Judah is going to come the Messiah, Yeshua, Jesus. Out of Judah. So there's an interconnection. Why with Joseph? Because Joseph's whole life represents the Messiah. So there's a connection of Messiah, Yeshua, Jesus. Our Messiah is connected between Joseph and Judah. And here, at the very last moment, Judah is pleading. Is pleading for their father, Israel. Because he knows if they don't come back with Benjamin, you know, it says that Israel said, I'm going to die. Jacob said, I can't live. I lost my son Joseph, and I'm going to lose my son out of the woman that I love, Rachel. Okay, I can't do that. It's too much. So they said, please make sure that Benjamin comes back. And here Benjamin is saying, no, you know, it's not going to be like that. You know, actually, all the brothers said, we'll be your servants. Okay, after all that had happened in the last portion. And Joseph said, no, I'm only going to take the one whose goblet was found in his bag. I'm only going to take Benjamin. You all can go back to your house. You can all go back. I'm only going to take Benjamin because the goblet was found in his sack. He's the guilty party. But really, the whole thing was to test their hearts. Are they going to stand up for their brother this time? They didn't stand up for him. But now, the one that's closest to Joseph, his very brother from the same mother, and this is the test. And Judah is now pleading for the sake of their father, for the pain of their father. And he says, my Lord, actually, he said, for like you are like Pharaoh. My Lord has asked the servant, saying, verse 19 of chapter 44, saying, have you a father or a brother? And we said to my Lord, we have a father who is old and a child of his old age who is young, and his brother has died. And left is he alone from his mother, and his father loves him. Then you said to your servants, bring him down to me, and I will set my eye on him. We said to my Lord, unable is the youth to leave his father, for should he leave his father, he will die. But you said to your servants, if he does not come down, your brother who is youngest with you, you will not again see my face. And it was when we went up to your servant, my father, we told him the words of my Lord. Our father said, go back, buy us a little food. And we said, we cannot go down, only if there is our brother who is youngest with us, then we will go down, for we cannot see the face of the man if our brother who is youngest is not with us. Then he said, your servant, my father, to us, you know that 2 sons she bore to me, my wife. The one has gone away from me, and I presume, alas, he has been torn to pieces. And I have not seen him until now. So should you take also this one from before me, and there befall him a disaster, then you will thereby have brought down my old age and tragedy to the grave. And now, if I come to your servant, my father, and the youth is not with us, since his soul is so bound up with his soul, it will happen that when he sees that not with us is the youth, he will die. And your servants will have brought down the old age of your servant, my father, in sorrow to the grave. For your servant guaranteed the youth unto my father, saying, if I do not bring him back to you, then I will have sinned to my father for all the days. And now let me remain, please, me, your servant, in place of you. In other words, Judah is saying, take me as your servant. Just let Benjamin go back. In place of the youth as a servant to my Lord, and the youth will go up with his brothers. For how can I go up to my father if the youth is not with me, lest I see the tragedy that will befall my father? Chapter 45. Now unable was Joseph to restrain himself in the presence of all who stood before him. So he called out, clear out every man from before me. Thus there stood no man with him, and Joseph made himself known to his brothers. He gave out his voice in weeping, and they heard in Egypt, and here did the household of Pharaoh. And Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Is yet my father alive? But unable were his brothers to answer him, because they were dismayed before him. Then Joseph said to his brothers, come close, please, to me. And they came close, and he said, I am Joseph, your brother, that you sold me into Egypt. And now do not be upset, and do not be angry in your own eyes, because you sold me to this place. For it was to be a source of sustenance that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years this has been the famine in the midst of the land, and there are yet 5 years in which there will be no plowing or harvest. When Joseph revealed himself to his brothers, it says in the word he could not restrain himself any longer. It was pain inside of him, longing for his brother, longing for his family. So the word restrain is to hold, be strong, restrain, hold back. It says he called out. That's the word kara. And Joseph made himself known to his brothers. That's the word yada. Now, why is this important? Because it says in Jeremiah that, God really doesn't care about all the things we do. All he cares about is that we understand and know him. That we understand and know him. The word is know. It's the word yada. It says here, this is Joseph making himself known to his brothers. This isn't just an ordinary known. He is making them know he is their family. He is their brother. He gave out his voice in weeping. Now, gave out means it became like a gift. Natan, to bestow his voice. His voice is cold, a sound, a noise, a thunder. Okay? A thunder, like in the song. Okay, thunder. In weeping, in bewailing, in the shedding of tears. And it says, Shema, and they heard did Egypt, and here did the house of Pharaoh. Now, you might just read that and pass it by. But how, in one house, when Joseph reveals himself to his brothers, does all of Egypt hear it? Does all of Pharaoh's household hear it when he weeps out loud? It's impossible. But if it's more than what is there, it says in Romans 7 or 8 that the Torah is spiritual and it must be understood in the spirit. It's prophetic. It's prophetic because when Yeshua comes, there's going to be a shout, an archangel, and a trumpet call of God, and the dead in Messiah are going to arise. Okay, we know that. But how about when he reveals himself to his brothers? On Yom Kippur, when he comes back, physically back to the earth, with all of us believers in tow, and yes, we will be in tow. Okay? We will be following him on white horses and chariots of horses. Okay? What's going to happen is he's going to open up the clouds. Israel is going to be assembled at Mount Sinai. And I'm not going to explain everything about why Mount Sinai. I have lots of proof, but I'm not going to explain that right now. But it's at Mount Sinai. It's not at Petra. Okay? All right? So they're all going to be assembled. The same place they received the Torah. They're going to see the destruction of Jerusalem. They're going to see almost the wiping out of the nation of Israel. And they're going to cry out, and at that moment, the clouds are going to peel away like a scroll. There's going to be shining light through blackness of sky. Messiah is going to come. They're going to look upon him whom they have pierced. And they're going to mourn. They're going to be dismayed. We read, you can read on page 3 of your notes. They were dismayed before him. Bahal, terrified, disturbed. Disturbed. Okay? That's why the brothers were disturbed. What's happening here in the revealing of Yeshua, of Joseph revealing himself to his brothers, is symbolic of when Yeshua comes to reveal himself to Israel as a nation, and they look upon him whom they pierced, and they realize, Yeshua, look what we did to you. How could you love us? How can you forgive us? Well, what do you think his brothers did when Joseph revealed himself? How could you forgive us, Joseph? Look at what we did to you. It's the same. It's a rehearsal. It's symbolic. It's a tamid. It's a type. Okay? And it's to show us God's heart. And why does Joseph give out his voice that all of Egypt could hear? That all of Pharaoh's household could hear? Because Egypt is a type and shadow of the whole world. Because it says when he gives out his voice, all the tribes of the earth will hear it. Okay, and that is, let's look at Revelation 1. Revelation 1, 7. Verse 7. Behold, he is coming in the clouds, and every eye will see him, even those who pierced him. Israel has their part. And all the tribes of the earth will mourn over him. So it will be. Amen. Okay. They will look upon him whom they have pierced in Zechariah. Zechariah chapter 14. Zechariah 12, sorry. Zechariah 12:9. In that day I will set about to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem, and I will pour out on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem a spirit of grace and of supplication, so that they will look on me whom they had pierced, and they will mourn for him, as one mourns for an only son, and they will weep bitterly. Weep, just as his brothers wept. Weep bitterly for him, like the bitter weeping over a firstborn. Yeshua is the firstborn. In that day there will be great mourning in Jerusalem, like the mourning of Hadad-rimmon in the plain of Megiddo. You know what that is? The mourning, all the people die in the battle of Armageddon. That's what they're talking about, the battle of Armageddon. So that will have already happened when Messiah comes to reveal himself to Israel. Okay, so there'll be a mourning there. The Lamb will mourn. Every family by itself. The family of the house of David by itself, and their wives by themselves. The family of the house of Nathan by itself, and their wives by themselves. The family of the house of Levi by itself, and their wives by themselves. The family of the Shemites by itself, and their wives by themselves. Why do they mention some of the tribes? And then he says, the men and the wives. Because at that point, is it going to matter? Each of us are going to mourn for what we did. What we each did to him. All the Jews, all the tribes are going to look and they're going to realize we did that to him. And we did that to our brothers who believe in him. Because they're going to remember that. They're going to remember their family members who became believers in Yeshua. This is why I really believe that there's going to be a great revival that occurs among the Jewish people, just before the coming of Messiah and the time period of the troubles and everything. Because it's going to reflect on, a lot of families are going to be touched by someone becoming a believer. And they're going to realize we did this to him, and we did that to his people, to the people, the Jews who became believers. We ostracized them. We threw them out. We killed them. We did all this stuff to them. Okay, so in a way, this is where we're going to begin to move on from. Okay? We're going to start now talking about a little bit about Benjamin. Okay? But when Messiah comes and all the world will listen to his heart when he reveals who he is to Israel. See, the whole world is going to know at that point how much God loved Israel. Not that Israel's better, they're not. But the whole world is going to realize how much he loved the people of Abraham. It started with Abraham. How much he loved the physical people of Israel because he's connected to them. He came from them. It was their obedience to a degree that brought Yeshua down. And there is a love, and this is what I want you to grasp just a little bit enough to understand God's passionate love for Israel. Not because they're better, but because his heart for his people. Look at Romans 9. Romans 9, verse 1. I am telling you the truth in Messiah. I'm not lying. My conscience testifies with me in the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, that I have great sorrow and unceasing grief in my heart. For I could wish that I myself were accursed, separated from Messiah for the sake of my brethren, my kinsmen according to the flesh. Now, you got to remember that Paul was of the Benjamites, of the Benjamite tribe. So, so he's saying my flesh, my Benjamite brothers, my Israelite brothers, physical, who are Israelites, to whom belongs the adoption as sons and the glory of the covenant and the giving of the Torah and the temple service and the promises, whose are the fathers, and from whom Messiah, according to the flesh, who is over all, God blessed forever. Amen. But he says, my conscience testifies with me in the Ruach HaKodesh. If you don't have this heart for Israel, then something's wrong. Because the Holy Spirit inside of you has to be, that's the way the Holy Spirit is. There's a group of believers out there, and they're the replacement theologians is what I call them. Those people are missing something in the Holy Spirit, something big. Now, I'm not saying everybody's right who supports Israel. Some just support their nationality, okay, that they're a nation. And we've got to be careful because they have to support Israel. They have to understand God's heart for them, not just a physical nation, not just the physical people, but God's heart for them. To bring salvation to our people, to reveal Yeshua, to study the Word, and show our people who Yeshua is. Just by living it, let alone teaching it. Following God's commandments, following His Torah, will provoke them to jealousy. Romans 10 repeats the same thing. Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to God for them is for their salvation. For I testify about them that they have a zeal for God, but not according with knowledge. He's talking to the Romans, to the Roman believers, and he's saying, please, understand God's heart for them. For not knowing about God's righteousness and seeking to establish their own, they did not subject themselves to the righteousness of God. For Messiah is the goal of the Torah for righteousness to everyone who believes. Okay, look at chapter 11. In verse 5. There has come to be at the present time a remnant, those who believe among the Israel, according to God's choice. But if it is by grace, it is no longer on the basis of works, otherwise grace is no longer grace. What then? What Israel is seeking and has not obtained, but those who were chosen obtained it, and the rest were hardened. Just as it is written, God gave them a spirit of stupor, eyes to see not and ears to hear not, down to this very day. And David says, let their table become a snare and a trap, and a stumbling block and a retribution to them. Let their eyes be darkened to see not, and bend their backs forever. Now, he's talking about physical Israel. I say then, did they stumble so as to fall? Did they? May it never be. But by their transgression, salvation has come to the Gentiles to make them jealous. Now, another word for jealousy in Hebrew, kana, is envious. Okay. Zealous. Thank you. Zealous. Okay, they're zealous for something to make the Jews zealous for what they have. Not just jealous, zealous for God. Okay? In other words, if a Gentile is living in such a way that they are more Jewish than the Jew, that's going to make the Jew wonder, what makes you tick? But see, here's the plus to this. They have the power of God and the Spirit of God in their lives. That's what makes them different. That they, not only are they following the Torah, but they have in their lives the power and the Spirit of God. That's going to make them jealous. I don't know about you, but whenever I meet someone who's full of the Spirit all the time, I'm jealous. I want more. I always want more. Okay, we all want the cloud. That's what we sing about. Okay, the glory. The glory and the truth. The truth and the glory. The power, the Spirit. Okay, it's never enough. I don't know about you, but when I got baptized in the Spirit, man, I was soaked. I was stoked from head to toe.
Soaked and stoked. I like that.
Okay, and I mean, I was so overwhelmed with the Spirit of God. And I thought it was going to last forever. Okay, you know what? I was, from that point on, my life became hell. But at the same time, the power of God was with me. And when I say that, I don't mean that in a negative context here, okay?
We know.
You all know, okay? But you know what? After that, I found myself alone, okay? And when you're anointed and you're called, you walk with God in that special place, in that place of power. Okay, but you also have to deal with flesh issues. And when you're alone with God, it's 10 times worse. When you're anointed, the enemy knows you're anointed, and he even tries harder to stop you. Okay, so I'm telling you, yes, it's not easy. But this is the way to live. And back then, I didn't know really anything about Judaism or leading Judaism. All I knew was that I was empowered by the Spirit, and I was trying to, after that, I had to do something Jewish. And I don't know why. Yeah, I'm a Jew, okay? But I didn't know anything about leading. I didn't know I was going to be a leader. I didn't really think about it. I was a broken, messed up, as you can be, low in self-esteem, okay? And God still shows me out of that. He says, okay, yeah, because you have no strength of your own, I get the glory out of your life. God wants the glory out of our lives. He's going to use people that are broken. He used Joseph, broken, out of his brothers, separated from his brothers. And he wants us. He wants to use us. Okay, but it's like, this is what we're supposed to have, the power of the Spirit. This is what's going to provoke the Jews to jealousy. But we also, God had to teach me how to be a Jew again. And God is the one that taught me. I didn't say, I got to get religious. I got to learn the Jewish ways. The Holy Spirit wanted me to do it. And maybe I should record this testimony down somewhere, but there were a lot of things that happened. God forced me to become a Jew again. Even fast days of Tibet. I was telling you about on Tuesday, I got angry at the Lord, 10 years ago. And, it was about 10 years ago. This was while I was still working over there at Helen of Troy. And I said, no one wants to celebrate your festivals, and so I'm not going to. But it was already after all the festivals. I said, I'll celebrate the main ones, but I don't care about the feasts, about the fast days, since no one else does. And so we came up to the fast day, and I literally made myself forget about the fast day of Tibet, the one coming up on Tuesday. So I'm driving along, and Donovan, and I make a right onto Red, and I said, you know what? There's a donut place over there. Las Jarones. I'm going to go in and get a donut on my way to work. The moment I make a turn, wham! Someone hits me from behind. Okay, and it literally totals the car. Not in destruction, but it was a hard hit. The radio pops out. It wasn't like squeezed between the front or back. It wasn't like that, but it was bad. And I was, praying and asking the Lord why this happened and wanting to know. And I get to work and I get an email, and the email says, and today is the fast day of Tibet. And the Lord began speaking to me and saying, you were to dishonor my fast day. So, you know what, even though it's not like a fast day of biblical, but it is important to the Lord. Because he's going to turn it into a feast day. So even if we don't know the full meaning of what it is now, there is going to be a full meaning of it in the future. So we do observe the fast day. So after I went back and I borrowed Christina's car, and I went to work and I came back. On my way back, I repented to the Lord. I said, I'm sorry, Lord, I disregarded your time. This time. And he said, listen, if everybody else in the world has no regard for my time, I have called you to regard my time. So I said, I will. But what about the car? He said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. That's what he told me. And sure enough, he did. Okay, but basically, it was a lesson. But I was frustrated at the time. I was frustrated that God sent me to a city where no one cares about his times and seasons. Okay, well, I said, even if no one else does it, I will do it. I will observe his calendar. Okay. So anyhow, that's, we got off track, but basically I was saying, God made me a Jew. He made me a Jew, and he filled me with the Spirit for the purpose of provoking the Jews to jealousy. Of course, these days, when it comes to my own family, I'm provoking them to anger more than jealousy. Okay, so, I think that one day they're going to look at us, these Messianic Jews, and they're going to say, we did that to you, I'm so sorry. Because they're going to remember, they're going to look upon Yeshua and realize he is our Messiah. And they're going to remember. And they're going to realize, you know what, I'm so sorry. And we're going to have to forgive them. We can't hold anything because they did not know. Their eyes could not see and their ears could not hear. Okay, so getting back to this. This is what he says in Genesis 45:3. He says, Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph, is my father alive? Why did he ask that? He knew his father was alive. They already testified. You know what he was actually saying? Is my father, does he have hope yet? Does he know that there's hope? Does he know that he can live? That that things are going to be better? Is he born again? It's like that's what he was saying. Is he born again? But unable were his brothers to answer him because they were dismayed. They were full of fright after, wow. The second in all command of Egypt, Judah just said a few minutes ago that you are like Pharaoh. And now it's like they're like, Joseph, they had to have been weeping. With an unreal weeping. And Joseph said to his brothers, come close, please, to me. And they came close and he said, I am Joseph, your brother, that you sold me into Egypt. And now do not be upset. Do not be angry in your own eyes because you sold me to this place. For it was be a source of sustenance. And God sent me ahead of you, for there has been 2 years, and there's 5 more coming. Verse 7. God sent me ahead of you to establish for you a remnant in the land to provide sustenance for you and a deliverance that is great. This is where I saw a new revelation. Because there's something more going on. Go to page 4 of the notes. Probably not up on the screen. It's probably a different page up there. Yeah, you're on the right page. 45:7. God sent me ahead of you to establish for you a remnant in the land and to provide sustenance for you and for a deliverance that is great. A remnant is sa'erit. Sa'erit, a rest, a residue, a remainder, a remnant. To provide sustenance, that's mihyah. Okay, that's preservation of Israel. To preserve you. For a deliverance that is great. Deliverance, paleta, No, I just realized that they have an ice cream bar in Spanish called a paleta.
Wow.
We like those bars.
Wow.
It's okay.
You want a
But-
paleta? Some
But,
salvation.
but it means a deliverance in Hebrew. Okay.
Hey, well, it does save you, right? Because it's
It
flavorful
saves
and
me
it tastes
from
amazing.
the desire to be hungry for one. I think that's all right. Anyhow, it means escape, deliverance. Okay,
Wait, hey.
a great deliverance. Gedulah. Okay, now I believe when Joseph was talking about what he was doing for Israel, he was not just talking about something in the present, but rather the rejection out of Egypt under Moses that would happen 210 years later. That was prophesied by Elohim to Abraham in Bereshit 15. Genesis 15, 12 to 16, there was a prophecy given to Abraham. Remember when he split the animals in two except for the birds? There was a prophecy given that your seed will be in a place for a period of time. But actually, he wasn't just talking about the slavery part. He was talking about the whole thing from the time of Abraham. Actually, I think they said they counted from Isaac and on. There are 400 years from Isaac and on till the time they came out of Egypt. When they were in Egypt, they were only there for 210 years. This is proven. This is accurate, okay? But we think it's 400 because we hear a couple of scriptures. But they were talking about, Paul and others were talking about from the time the prophecy took effect, which began with Isaac, and it ends with the coming out of Egypt. Actually, do you know that the Jews believe that the mother of Moshe was in the womb of, was it like,
Yocheved?
yeah, Jochebed was in the womb when they went into Egypt. So she, as time goes on, remember 80 years, Moshe went from Egypt 40 years before they got their redemption. So basically, the time period, it matches up, okay? There's 80 years of the life of Moses before he came to bring Israel out, okay? So it's 80 years, minus that from it, you get down to 130 years. It's possible. Is it 130 years or 120 years? It's 130 years, okay? But basically, she was in the womb, okay, of one of the wife of Levi. I think it's a wife of Levi or one of their children, okay? And when they went into Egypt, okay, so basically this is all a short time. It wasn't 400 years or 430 years. It was 210 years. Okay, so he says that there's going to be a deliverance. Now, the way he puts it, to provide sustenance for you for a deliverance that is great. A great deliverance. Yes, Israel was coming into Egypt to be delivered from the famine, but that was not the great deliverance. The great deliverance is when they came back out of Egypt. So I believe Joseph was prophesying that you're going to be sustained here until the great deliverance comes, in which you will be taken out. And it will be a great deliverance. Okay. So in this whole reading, Joseph is reassuring his brothers of his forgiveness of them. He told them not to be upset or angry at themselves. The tribes of Israel will weep and mourn as Yeshua reveals himself to all of Israel. He will probably spend some time reassuring them. He will need to because they did such bad stuff. Yeshua will show them his immense love for them when he shortly thereafter judges the nations on how they treated Israel. Now let's just read one. I have it in bold. Joel 3, 1 to 8. So you think, okay, it will be enough that he forgave them. But see, God's love for Israel is so great that for everything that happened to them, he is going to judge the nations. You remember where it says, he talks about the sheep and the goats? The sheep and the goat nations? They're nations. And he says it's based on what you do to the least of these, my brothers. It's Joseph talk. What you do to my brothers Israel, the least of them, is what is going to come to you. Okay? So what you've done to the least of these, my brethren. Okay? If we treat them well, then they'll be blessed. If the nation mistreated them, they will be cursed. This is the judgment of the sheep and the goats. It's what they did or didn't do to Israel. Joel chapter 3. Thank you. Read 1-8. For behold, in those days and at that time, I will restore the fortunes of Judah and Jerusalem, and I will gather all the nations to bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. Okay, which is right in front, right there. That's the valley, right there, where you see all the pictures of the Temple Mount and the wall. Right there, that's that valley. There's a valley right there. That's called Valley of Jehoshaphat. Okay. Okay. And I will enter into judgment with them there on behalf of my people and my inheritance Yisrael, whom they have scattered among the nations, and they have divided up my land, and they have cast lots for my people, traded a boy for a harlot, and sold a girl for wine that they may drink. Okay, he's going to come into judgment. This is the sheep and the goats. Okay, and in Matthew 25, 31 to 46. Listen, it has nothing to do with Jew or Gentile. It has to do with God's love for Israel. Purely God's love for Israel. And all the nations, remember, will come against Jerusalem at the end. So all those nations will go into judgment on how they treated Israel. That's why when a nation blesses Israel, as this nation currently is blessing Israel, they are going to be blessed. But if there is a bad leader, like the former leader of this nation, who mistreated Israel, they will be cursed. So, Matthew 25, 31. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, and he will sit on his glorious throne, all the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them from one another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats, and he will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left, and the king will say to those on his right, Come, you who are blessed of my Father, and inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, and thirsty and give you something to drink? And when did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or naked and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and come to you? The king will answer and say to them, Truly I say to you, to the extent that you did it to one of these brothers of mine, even the least of them, you did it to me. Then he will also say to those on his left, Depart from you, accursed ones, into eternal fire, which has been prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. Naked, and you didn't clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me. Then they themselves will answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not take care of you? And he will answer them, Truly I say to you, to the extent that you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it unto me. These will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. Now, he's talking about Israel, but he's also talking about Israel in the Spirit. The Christians, the believers that really love the Lord and love Israel. Okay, these people are also going to be, this is the sheep and the goats is for them. They are his brothers. We are made children of God, and we also are his brothers. He said, I call you brothers. By believing in him, we become his brothers. We become his sons. Sons of the Father is what he says, right? That means we're his brothers. But at the same time, we're married to the Lord. But that's a whole other thing. Okay, but what I'm saying is that we are all joined, but it's through love. When we love Israel, when we love the people, when we love the Jews, even if they mistreat us and abuse us, and even if they reject our message, we still love them because we know God's love for them. That's why it says, love your enemies. Listen, the Jews are not enemies of the cross for a time. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So what do you think he meant? Love your enemies. Oh, love them. Love them. Love the Jews. I'll tell you something. If you can love a really, we could be the worst. Okay? If you can love us like that, then, you can love anyone and everyone. Because we are stubborn people. We'll say it to your face. We'll cuss you to your face. and then if you still love us, that'll move us. That'll move us. Because we try to get you to hate us. And I speak from a perspective of unbelieving Jew. We try to get you to hate us. Because that's who we are. That's the way we are. Okay. But I say that this is the unbeliever. Because when a Jew becomes a believer, he changes or she changes too. But we still have who we are. We can't stop being Jews because we believe in Yeshua. Okay, so. But even Israel, who treated us, our own brothers who treated us as the enemy, will repent in the end. They will repent to all of us. Okay, so after that, the Father comes down. But I want you to see a few things that are really cool. They're going to be given the place of Goshen. Okay. Reading 45:12. Indeed. Now, after he said 5 years of famine are still coming, this is what he says. Indeed, verse 12 of chapter 45. Indeed, your eyes see, now look at this, as do the eyes of my brother Benjamin, that it is my mouth that is speaking to you. I found that very curious. Why does he say, now all of you, my brothers, see, just like my brother Benjamin? Meaning like my brother Benjamin means son of the right hand. Well, who is the son of the right hand? Who is the right hand of God? Yeshua. And are we not sons? We are Benjamin. The believers who believe, those who believe in Yeshua, are Benjamin. We, as Messianic Jews, specifically, okay, and also everybody who's been joined through faith in Messiah, according to Romans 11, okay, we are the brothers. We are the immediate brother who recognize him. That's our brother Yosef. That's our brother Yeshua. He says his eyes are open. Now you see like he sees. And this is the uniting of the two. Benjamin is a representation of the Messianic believers in this story of the revelation of Yeshua to his brothers. In the story of the revelation of Yosef to his brothers. Benjamin plays a part of the believers. So if you want to see what it's going to be like for us as believers, you just look at Benjamin in this story. Okay, Benjamin is treated differently, not just because he is a direct physical brother from the same mother, but because of what Benjamin represents spiritually. I believe he is symbolic of the Messianic Jewish believers who love Yeshua among the Jews and the tribes of Israel, who are already believers, and the tribes of Israel who are already believers in Yeshua. Our joy will be complete even more when the rest of our brothers from the tribes come to believe in and know Yeshua as we do. When we believe in Yeshua, the price is usually the loss of everyone we love, our whole family, which is strong and tight in a Jewish community. This can happen to non-Jewish believers as well. It is only when you experience this type of loss that you can really understand Yosef and Yeshua on this type of a personal level. You will not understand this if you don't have loss, if you don't have rejection from your family. Now, I know a lot of us, even if we're not Jews, have rejection from our family for believing in Yeshua. When you do that, it's because Yeshua said, I didn't come to bring peace, but a sword, to divide up families. And the Jews have to face that because Jews are very tight-knit. We are very close and very tight. We do everything together. Okay? And when you believe in Yeshua, suddenly you're separated from all that, all your family. And until you understand that, you can't really understand what it was like for Yosef, what it's like for Yeshua, and that he suffered at the hands of his brothers, and what it was like. With Yosef is a type and shadow of Yeshua. Okay, so, let's look at 24 to 28, and we'll probably finish with that. Okay. Let's go down a little bit. Chapter 45, 24 to 28. And he sent off. Now, he's now sending all this stuff. He's giving more to his brother Benjamin. Okay, he's giving all the silver is like it says 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of clothing he gave to his brother Benjamin. And he gave stuff to the rest of his family. And he sent him on, go get my father. I'm going to bring you to the land of Goshen to live. I'm going to take care of you. Just as Yeshua is going to bring them back, bring Israel back from all the nations and take care of them in the land. Okay, but anyhow, he says, and to his father he sent as follows: 10 he-donkeys laden with the best of Egypt, and 10 she-donkeys laden with grain, bread, and food for his father for the journey. We didn't talk about that last night about the donkeys, did we? This is proof that it is Messiah sending, not Messiah, that Joseph that is still alive. It's donkeys, he-donkeys and she-donkeys. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, something that's interesting here is that when it says the donkeys, it mentions the female donkey, which Yeshua was on a female donkey.
Right.
And she is the one that carries the grain. Yeshua calls himself the bread of life.
Right.
So she was carrying the grain, which is Messiah.
Right. And there also was he-donkeys, which is symbolic of other things. So verse 24, he sent off his brothers, and they went, and he said to them, do not become agitated on the way. Okay, I just want you to imagine, unfortunately, people like to gossip. Okay, so they're on their way back, and he said, listen, I know you guys. Do not argue what we did to him. Do not say, I told you not to do it. And all he knew, see, remember, 2 Jews, 3 opinions? They love to argue. And he said, you're going to argue. I said, do not argue along the way. Because I'll tell you something, you're going to get each other angry and agitated even more. It's done. It's over. It's forgiven. I just poked myself in the eye. Okay. So they'll become agitated on the way. They went up from Egypt and came to the land of Canaan to Yaakov, their father. Now, isn't it interesting he's called Yaakov? Remember, whenever he's called by his first name or named Yaakov, he's in the flesh. But whenever he's called Israel, he's in the spirit. Okay, and they told him, saying, yet, Father, Joseph is still alive, and he is ruler over all the land of Egypt. Now, his soul has been tormented for 40 years. Think he's going to believe him? Oh, yeah, right, yeah. And angels are flying everywhere. I don't trust you. It says, the land of Egypt. But turn away to his heart, for he did not believe them. When they told to him all the words of Joseph that he had spoken to them, and he saw the wagons that Joseph had sent to carry him, then revived was the Ruach, the spirit of Yaakov, their father. You know what that word revive is? He was born again. Now look at this. The very next verse, Israel said. In other words, he is now Israel because he has been revived. He has been resurrected. His heart has been refreshed. Okay, because now he believes. Being born again, you believe and are saved. And Israel said, how great yet Joseph, my son, lives. I shall go and see him before I die. In chapter 46. So Israel journeyed. He wasn't called Jacob anymore, was he? Because he's not in the flesh. He's in the spirit. And Israel journeyed with all that was his, and he came to Beersheba. He slaughtered sacrifices to the God of his father, Yitzchak. And God said to Israel in visions of the night, and he said, Yaakov, Yaakov. Now, have you ever wondered why he said Yaakov, Yaakov? He's saying, strengthen yourself. You're not in the flesh anymore. I tell you twice. Yaakov, Yaakov. And he said, here I am. Strengthen yourself in the flesh. Here I am. And he said, I am the God of your father. Do not fear of descending into Egypt, for as a nation that is great, I will establish you there. I shall descend with you to Egypt, and I will also bring you up also. And Joseph shall place his hand on your eyes. And Jacob rose up to Beersheba, and they carried the sons of Israel dead. Yaakov their father, as well as their young children, their wives, their wagons, which Pharaoh had sent to carry in, and they took their livestock, their possessions, that they had amassed in the land of Canaan, and they came to Egypt. Yaakov and all his offspring with him, his sons and the sons of his sons with him, his daughters and the daughters of his sons, and all the offspring he brought with him to Egypt. Okay, and it goes and it begins to name everyone. There's 70 souls total. Okay, so so here's the place. They end up going to Egypt. Do you know that when Benjamin came back, Benjamin, a grown man, had 10 sons. 10 sons. And I'm not going to go through all of this, okay? But I have it broken down here as a prophecy in the 10 sons of Benjamin, okay? And I'll let you read that on your own. Okay, so basically the meaning of it is there too. And actually just say my interpretation, okay, of how the 10 sons are prophetic. And you can read that on your own. Then Joseph and Yaakov come before Pharaoh. And then Pharaoh asked him, "What are your days, old man?" Pharaoh's talking to, you got to understand, Pharaoh knew Joseph saved everyone. So he wanted to learn about the God of Israel. I firmly believe that Joseph taught Pharaoh about the God of Israel. And Pharaoh was excited to know. This is a wonderful Pharaoh, okay? And so he wanted to know about the father, Yaakov. He wanted to know about his days. So he said, what was your life like? He said, this is what Israel answered. Few and bad, actually Yaakov answered, few and bad, bottom of page 8. Few and bad have been the days of the years of my life. Now, I looked at what they meant. The word for few is ma'at. In other words, there were few. Okay, now you got to remember, people were still living a long time. His father lived long. His father before him lived even longer. But the days, the years of people's lives were getting shorter. So he said, they were not as long as theirs. But then he says, and bad have been my days. The word there in Hebrew is Ra, the god that Egypt worshipped. But he said, bad and evil, terrible, unpleasant, displeasing, miserable have been my days. Can you imagine? He's going before Pharaoh. He says, I haven't lived as long as my parents and my grandparents, and they've been miserable. And that's what he told them. Okay. And so they go through the rest of the years of the famine, and Israel, the children of Israel, settling in the land of Goshen, in Mitzrayim, in Egypt. Okay, and that's the portion. And if you read this portion, it's really amazing because through the years of the famine, the people kept coming to him, and they were running out of stuff to give him, so they sold their souls, or sold their lives to Pharaoh. Okay, just to eat, because the famine was so bad for the 7 years. So Pharaoh owned everybody. So no wonder later there would be a fight for leadership over Egypt because the people were sick and tired of being owned by Pharaoh. So a new Pharaoh came, and next, in a couple of weeks, we'll begin talking about the book of Shemot, the book of Exodus. A new Pharaoh will rise up who doesn't know Yosef. Okay, so let's finish. Okay. So we close in prayer. Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet b'chai olam natan b'tuchenu. Baruch atah Yehovah noten haTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has given us the Torah of truth and has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, O Lord, giver of the Torah. Abba, I just ask that this teaching, Abba, would just transform us. Abba, help us to understand how much love you have for Israel, but how much love do you have for us, because we have believed in you. We have joined with Israel. All Jew and non-Jew, we are this one new man. But we are spiritual Israel, Abba. And help us to have that same love for the physical people of Israel, Lord, that you have. That through the Holy Spirit, Abba. And to not be so thinking about ourselves all the time, but always praying for Israel, always lifting up for their salvation. But Paul said, I would give up my salvation that my brethren might come to know you, Lord. I ask, Lord, may that heart be in us. Not that we would want to give up our salvation, but that we would understand your heart and your pain. That we could share that. You said that come to me, you who are heavy laden, for my burden is light, my yoke is easy. But yes, it is easy, but also there's still pain there. That your yoke for Israel, your yoke for the people of Israel. Let's do the lifting up of Torah L'Chachma. It's in the middle of page 68. You're on top of it there, Kevin. So I'll point our right hand, our finger toward the Torah. V'zot HaTorah asher sam Moshe livnei bnei Yisrael bi Adonai v'yad Moshe. This is the Torah that Moshe placed before the children of Israel at the command of the Lord through Moshe's hand. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. יברכך יהוה וישמרך, יאר יהוה פניו אליך ויחונך, יישא יהוה פניו אליך וישם לך shalom. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his face upon you and give you peace. In the name of our Sar Shalom, our Prince of Peace, Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the Aleph and the Taf, the soon-coming King, like Yosef, to reveal himself to Israel and to come, the one that we have hoped for, the one that we have longed for. In Yeshua's name. You know, I forgot to share with you one other thing. Years ago, maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, I had a vision while we were studying this portion. Actually, not while we were studying exactly, while we were worshiping. I don't have that many visions. I have it on one hand. That's how many visions I've had. Okay, and maybe even less than one hand. Okay, but in this vision, I saw the house, and I saw Joseph and his brothers, and I saw his brothers like were around columns, and they were close to him, and he was revealing himself to them, but he wasn't Joseph, he was Yeshua. And there was a Christian man on these big long steps going up, and he was watching it, like he was watching Yeshua as he was revealing himself to his brothers, to Israel. And he said, oh great, after he revealed himself to Israel, now we don't need the law anymore. They all believe in Jesus. And they all believe in you. And Yeshua turns his face in anger and looks at that Christian on the steps and said, no, now my brothers are going to lead the world into knowing my Torah and knowing my law and walking in it. And that was a pretty heavy thing, but he was angry. He's angry at false doctrines in the church. He's angry at a lot of, not the believers themselves, but their false doctrine that they put above the Word of God. We need to return to the Torah, the purity of that Word. And I believe this is what the spirit of Elijah comes. Yeshua said, Elijah will come before the great and terrible day of the Lord to restore the hearts of the fathers to the children and the hearts of the children to the fathers. And Yeshua said he will restore all things. That means all the Torah in its purity, not all the extra biblical stuff in the sense of that people put above the Word of God. That Word is going to be restored into the hearts of people. People are going to love the Word of God. or they're going to love the falseness. There's going to be one or the other. There's not going to be any lukewarm. This is the lukewarm that he spews out of his mouth, the ones who don't love the Word of God. So anyhow, just want to share that. Let's do the blessing for the bread. All right.